For over 5 decades now, scientists have been totally captivated by this field, a field that finds these beautiful hidden patterns inside of what looks like just pure randomness. It's called chaos theory, and today we're going to pull back the curtain on this incredible science of surprise. So let's just dive right in, right? And explore the beautiful hidden order within the chaos.
I mean, it's a question we've all asked, right? You check the weather forecast, it says sunny skies, and then boom, rain. We've got supercomputers, these incredibly advanced models, tons of data, yet somehow long-term weather forecasting is still, well, it's stubbornly out of reach. So what's really going on here?
Well, the reason isn't that our tools are bad or that the weather is just, random noise. Nope. The answer is something way more profound. It's a fundamental property of the system itself, and it's called chaos.
Okay, I know that sounds like a total mouthful, so let's break it down. Deterministic. That just means the system follows fixed rules. There's no randomness being thrown in. But even with those fixed rules, you get aperiodic long-term behavior, which is just a fancy way of saying it never, ever exactly repeats itself. And here's the kicker. Sensitive dependence on initial conditions. This is the big one. It means a tiny, microscopic change at the very start can lead to these enormous, wildly different outcomes down the road.
This entire field, it basically exploded into existence because of one scientist, a pretty simple computer model, and a complete accident. This is the origin story of chaos, and it all starts with a guy named Lorenz.
So, picture this. It's 1963. Lorenz is a meteorologist over at MIT. He's using one of those really early computers to run a simulation of weather patterns. And one day, to save a little time, he decides to restart a simulation from the middle. But instead of typing in the full number, like 0.506127, he just rounds it off to 0.506. I mean, what's the harm, right? Well, what happened next, it literally changed science forever.
And what's so amazing about this is just how simple these equations look. I mean, look at them. This is that deterministic part we were just talking about. Just 3 short, well-defined rules that were supposed to govern his simulated weather. Now, most mathematicians back then would have looked at this and thought, yeah, pretty straightforward. They totally expected simple rules to produce, simple, predictable behavior. Oh, but were they wrong? When Lorenz plotted the output of his equations, he didn't get a simple line or a nice stable loop. No, he got this absolutely intricate, never-ending, never-repeating pattern that we now call the Lorenz attractor. And it's just this brilliant illustration of how a few basic instructions can generate infinite complexity. It's got order, but it's completely unpredictable.
And this was Lorenz's great discovery. That tiny, tiny rounding difference in his numbers, a change of less than 1 part in 1,000, caused his entire weather simulation to go off in a completely different direction. 2 starting points, practically identical, led to drastically different futures. He suddenly realized that predicting long-term weather wasn't just hard, it might actually be impossible.
So to explain this incredible idea, Lorenz came up with one of the most famous phrases in all of science, the butterfly effect. You've probably heard of it. The idea that the flap of a single butterfly's wings in Brazil could, in theory, set off a chain of events that eventually causes a tornado in Texas. A tiny cause, a massive effect. So for a while, chaos was just seen as this strange little curiosity. But pretty soon, scientists started to realize that this problem of unpredictability could actually be an incredibly powerful tool. Let's check out how this fascinating problem was turned into a solution in our modern world. And it turns out, chaos is it's everywhere. From the way animal populations grow and shrink to the behavior of electronic circuits. And what's really cool is that in a lot of fields, engineers aren't trying to avoid chaos anymore, they're actually trying to create it. And you might be asking, why? Well, because sometimes unpredictability is exactly what you need. Yeah, just take a look at this. In industrial manufacturing, right? If you want to mix something like paint or even cake batter, a simple, repetitive stirring motion, it always leaves dead spots. But a chaotic stir, one that never repeats the same path, mixes everything perfectly and uses less energy. Or think about nuclear fusion. Creating chaotic heat patterns actually helps spread that energy more effectively through the plasma. And get this, in communications, you can hide a secret message inside a chaotic signal. It makes it almost impossible for anyone to intercept and decode it, unless they have the exact starting key. So you see, in these cases, the unpredictability of chaos isn't a bug, it's a feature. Okay, So, if chaos is hiding inside all these different systems, how do scientists actually find it? How do they study it? Well, they have this really specialized toolkit full of mathematical and visual methods that are designed to reveal these hidden patterns. The process, generally looks something like this. First, you've got to model a system, say an electronic circuit or a chemical reaction, and run a simulation on a computer. Then, you apply these special analytical tools to all that data. And these tools are designed specifically to look for the telltale signs, the visual signatures of chaos. And here are some of the main tools in that kit. We've actually already seen a chaotic attractor. Remember that butterfly shape from Lorenz's system? That's one. But there are also tools with these really cool names, like Lyapunov exponents, which basically measure the speed of chaos. You've got bifurcation diagrams, which map the journey from order to chaos, and Poincaré maps, which give you like a snapshot of the system's behavior. Each one of them gives us a totally different window into the hidden dynamics of a system. Really, the best way to think about these tools is that they create a unique fingerprint for a system's behavior. And just like no two human fingerprints are ever exactly alike, the visual output from these tools can show you the unique chaotic signature of whatever system you're studying. Just look at this, for example. Over on the left, you see the classic Lorenz attractor. That's its fingerprint. But on the right, that's the attractor for a completely different chaotic system, a modern electronic circuit. You can see they're both super complex and structured, right? But they have completely different shapes. By just looking at these fingerprints, a scientist can instantly understand a whole lot about how that system behaves. And this is another one of my favorite tools, a bifurcation diagram. It's basically like a roadmap. On the left side of the map, you can see the system's behavior is simple. It's predictable. It follows that single path. But then, as you change a setting and move to the right, you see the road start to split, and then it splits again and again and again until it just explodes into that wide, scattered cloud. And that cloud? Well, that's chaos. It's just this beautiful visualization of how a system can go from a simple, predictable state into a whole realm of infinite possibilities. And finally, we have what's kind of the ultimate litmus test for chaos, the Lyapunov exponent. Just think of it as a chaos meter. It boils everything down to a single number that tells us exactly how quickly two nearly identical starting points are going to fly apart. If that number is positive, it's like dropping 2 grains of sand right next to each other into a fast-moving river. They're going to get swept apart exponentially fast. A positive Lyapunov exponent, that's the definitive mathematical proof that a system is chaotic. No doubt about it. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? What's the main idea? It's this absolutely stunning realization that you don't need complicated rules to get complicated results. From just a handful of simple deterministic equations, you can generate a universe of behavior that is endlessly creative, infinitely complex, and fundamentally unpredictable. And that leaves us with one final, fascinating question to chew on. We've seen how chaos can emerge from just 3 simple little equations. So, what does that imply for the truly complex systems that govern our world? Things like the global economy, the Earth's climate, or even the human brain. It suggests that deep within them, there might just be a beautiful, structured, yet ultimately unpredictable order just waiting to be discovered.